There was never any thunderstorm that night. By Apollo, LOL.
The National Weather Service in Shreveport has issued a severe thunderstorm warning for...
It was late at night on Saturday when I was greeted with the severe thunderstorm warning plastered over top my favorite show. I didn't have work tomorrow, so I decided to stay up later than normal and mess around a bit. Ugh, I groaned as I forced myself to sit up and listen to the warning in its entirety.
Repeating, a severe thunderstorm warning has been issued until 7:45 p.m. Central Daylight Time for the following counties.
After the warning had finally left my screen, I watched TV for another 2 to 3 hours before getting up, reluctantly, off my sofa to pour myself another cup of coffee. I was halfway through pouring the cup, and the power in my apartment just cut out, leaving me in pitch blackness. God damn it, I said to myself. I set the cup down on the counter and pulled my phone out to turn the flashlight on. As I was doing this, I noticed I didn't have any signal either. I guess this storm is pretty severe after all, I muttered to myself. Usually, whenever we get warnings like this, the storm would just pass right over our small town and head to the others. And the way the apartment was set up, each building had its own breaker box next to the maintenance room, just on the left to the entrance door. If the power went out to a single unit, the owner could simply knock on the door to the maintenance room and ask if they could switch it back on. I wanted to know if and when the power will come back on. So I made my way out of the apartment, shining the flashlight down the hall. I never really left my apartment at night. Never have I had a blackout happen here. The hallway seemed dark, eerie. It just put out a negative vibe that sent chills down my spine. After checking the surrounding areas a little, I decided to venture out towards the end of the corridor. As I walked, I noticed that it was more quiet than normal. Usually, the building was quiet, but never like this. A light buzzing noise started to fill my ears to try to drown out the silence. All that I could hear were my footsteps and pant legs brushing up against each other with each step I took. A few steps in, and I started feeling a little lightheaded and dizzy. Everything felt as though it were spinning. I quickly regained my composure, however, when I heard what sounded like a tearing noise, followed by some loud cracking, as if bones were being broken. I figured it was just a thunderstorm and rain outside, and continued on. As I reached the end of the hall, I walked up to the maintenance door and knocked softly. "Hey, any word on when the power will come back?" I paused and looked down at my feet after noticing the light reflecting off the ground from my phone's flashlight. I aimed the beam of light down on the ground. There was a dark pool surrounding my foot. Unsure at first of what the liquid was, I bent down to get a closer look, and I saw a deep crimson color. Blood. My heart started to beat hard in my chest as I got back up. I stood for a second and my thoughts were racing in my head as to what I should do, so I decided to try to open up the door. I very slowly and shakily reached my hand out to the knob to twist it, but it wouldn't move. It was locked. My next instinct was to call the police, but as I started dialing 911, I felt as though there were eyes on me, coming from everywhere around me. I finished dialing and pressed call and held the phone up to my ear and was greeted with a woman on the other end.
911, what's your emergency?
The female operator asked me in a calm, collected voice. I live in 896 Terrace Grove, apartment 12, building C, I replied shakily.
Okay, what's the nature of your emergency?
I went to ask the maintenance guy when the power will come back on, but when I got to the door, I saw a pool of blood coming from underneath the door. My voice became increasingly panicked and shaky. I started to hyperventilate a little, not feeling alone or safe where I was standing. I started to head back to my apartment. and that's when I saw it.
Okay, sir. I need you to stay on the phone.
The operator continued to talk to me over the phone, but I couldn't bring myself to reply as I stared at the being in front of me. It was tall, much taller than any human being, with long, jagged-looking arms that looked as if they were mangled and disfigured. Its feet looked more like bony talons. Bloody, cracked, bony talons. I couldn't get a good view of it as the light of my phone was shining on the wall next to me, as the operator raised her voice to get my attention.
Hello? Sir? Are you there?
She asked nervously, worried that something might have happened to me. At that moment, I was worried that something would happen to me. The creature then snapped its neck, leaving its head resting on one of its shoulders and staring at me with empty sockets. I grasped my phone and yelled as I ran down the hallway back to the maintenance room, jiggling the door handle frantically to get in. I turned to see the being, and what I saw was running towards me. It was fast, way faster than I could fucking run, and the way it ran looked as if its legs were broken. It was limping and stumbling, but never fell. As it got closer to me, I kicked the door a few times until the frame gave in and finally snapped. I quickly ran inside and slammed the door next to me. It smelled bad in that room. I shined my light around to get a look at my surroundings and froze when I saw the maintenance guy on the floor. His body was a mangled mess of skin and organs. His eyes were gone, just 2 empty sockets remained.
Sir, are you okay? What's going on?
I had forgotten that I dialed 911. I raised the phone back to my ear and tried my best to speak coherently. There's something in the building. It killed the maintenance guy. I'm in the maintenance room right now. Please fucking hurry, I said while choking back tears. After I caught my breath, I screamed as I felt the door start to get pushed open. The creature outside was trying to make its way in. I screamed more as I tried to keep the door shut. The 911 operator could do nothing but listen to my shrill cries of terror and fear as I fought for my life to keep this thing out.
Sheriff's office, get on the ground!
I heard from down the hall. The police were finally here. I felt a little more at ease, but quickly grew more fearful once I heard one of the officers screamed out in a muffly, staticky sounding way.
Oh my God. What the hell is that?
After this, I heard the sound of a gun being fired at whatever was out there. I quickly ducked down and laid in the pool of blood under me, trying to avoid getting shot. After a while of this, I heard nothing outside but footsteps of the police walking towards the door. As they got closer and closer, I felt everything around me start to spin and contort. It was overwhelming, then everything started going blacker and blacker, until I passed out on the floor, in a pool of the maintenance guy's blood. I woke up in the emergency room sometime after. I was in a hospital gown and hooked up to some sort of IV drip. I was confused at first, but I quickly remembered the events of that night and early morning. That's when a nurse walked into my room, saw that I was awake and ran to get the doctor. After several minutes, he walks into my room holding a clipboard. "Mr. McKinley, how are you feeling?" he asked as he approached my bedside. "A little shaken up, but fine otherwise," I replied. "Do you know where you are right now?" he asked me again, in a tone that implied that I may not know where I was. "Yeah, I'm in a hospital," I answered. "Okay. Do you know what happened last night?" he asked as he pulled up a chair and sat down facing me. I relayed everything that I remembered about the night. The storm warning, the blackout, the maintenance room, and he looked at me solemnly as if he were upset and responded softly. "I'm sorry, but that's not what happened last night," he said with sorrowful eyes. I looked at him confused. I saw everything that happened. I know what I fucking saw. You seem to have been hallucinating. There was never a thunderstorm warning or blackout. According to the neighbors and what the police saw, you walked out of your apartment with your phone light on and went into the maintenance room. He sighed and then continued. "Mr. McKinley, due to the lack of sleep you've been experiencing, combined with an apparent high amount of caffeine in your system, You suffered a psychotic break episode last night, one which you seem to have hallucinated, and out of some sort of aggression you had, you murdered Mr. Springer, the maintenance man, and then called 911, speaking incoherently. My jaw dropped as he continued to speak. How could any of this have happened? It's not that I don't remember what happened last night. I know what fucking happened. I was almost killed by a demonic being. When the police arrived, they saw you standing in front of the door. They shouted at you to drop the knife you used and shot you in the leg and abdomen. You hallucinated everything last night, Mr. McKinley. The blackout, the creature, everything. It would seem like everything you saw and heard was piggybacking off of what was really happening. I stared in silence, not sure what to say or how to react. I noticed movement behind him in the hallway. I looked past him and noticed the creature standing there, staring at me with his big empty eye sockets, smiling at me with a broken smile.